Alright, so this is our Shopbot CNC router, and we have our computer station right here. We're going to start off, we're going to turn on the computer, so we'll just power it up, and then we need to actually turn on the CNC router. So that power switch is over here. There's an access panel, and it just flips up, and you can hear it kind of warming up. And so that's it. There's our spindle, right? That controls our spindle. And then as we open this up, what we'll see is, right, our different work holding pieces. We have our dust collection brush, which will just clip on there. With the CNC router, we need to make sure that our dust collection is set up correctly. It's going to produce a lot of dust. So I'm not going to turn it on right now, but that goes to our hose, which then goes up into our full dust collector. So there's different ways that we can attach and hold our work with our CNC router. That is usually the point of failure when we have something not work with the CNC router. There's a lot of force as that router bit is moving around. So we have some holes drilled in here and some inserts for our T-track for holding pieces. We also have a wedge system where we can put a piece in and then basically bring this wedge into it, and that will hold our piece as well. So more work holding is always better than less, and for the projects that you start with, the work holding will be set for you so that gives you a good chance of it actually working. Now, when we get to the computer piece, I'll go through this with the screencast as well, but on the PC, it's really just set up to run the CNC and the CNC router. And so if I open up Shopbot 3, it gives me my panel here. All right, and so to start with, we want to run, because it's the first time that we've run it today, we need to do a spindle warm-up routine that's pre-built into the software. So let me pull that up, and then I'll show you kind of how that works. Okay, so as we have the spindle warm-up routine, we go to Cuts, and down here, that C5 spindle warm-up routine. And what it's going to do is it's click OK to start and run the file. I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to transition here to show you what the spindle So that will just run, and when it's done, you can see our spindle just sitting there. Before you start that, you want to make sure that obviously the spindle is clear, right, that it's not touching anything it's going to hit. And when that's done, we will talk about how we're going to load our piece and start that actual project. Alright, so that's it. It finished up its spindle warm-up. We only have to do that once a day when we start at the machine. And for the most part, that'll be done for you. Alright, now it's time to actually get our piece and get it set up with the work holding, and then hopefully get it cut out. Okay, so we have our material that's cut to the right size. So this is a 12-inch by 5.5-inch by 1/2 inch piece of wood that we're going to cut our handles out of. It's secured using these clamps, and so basically then the design gives around 1/2 inch around the perimeter for our stock, so we should be okay with the clamps on the outside like this. It's always a little bit tricky to make sure that our clamps are out of the way so that we don't hit that with the actual with the router, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to maneuver the router, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing, what the router is doing, but basically I'm using the computer, right, to control where the router is and go from there. So a couple things we need to do to start is we need to zero the machine. We need to tell it where its starting point is. For our project, the starting point is going to be in this corner, and that's kind of where this corner jig is set up to 0 to automatically with the machine. So it's finding the limits. And it's moving into that corner. All right, so we've zeroed our X and Y axis. The next thing we need to do is we need to maneuver and tell it where the height of our material is. So I'm going to move it manually out of the way a little bit. And let me reposition this so you can see a little bit better. All right. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take our metal plate. Let me move it a little bit more so you can see. All right. This is a touch probe. And what it does is it has a clip that is going to go onto the spindle. So we're going to clip that onto the spindle. And then what will happen is when we make contact with that plate, it will complete the circuit, and it'll subtract off the width of this plate, and it'll know where the surface of our actual material is. So I'm going to position it close to it. So that's over it. I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And then I'm going to zero it using the zero plate. Alright, let's see. I want to again make sure that it's there. So it's going to move down. It touched the plate, and it's automatically moving back up. Let me try to do that again so you can see what's happening here. So I'm going to zero it. It's going to give me a warning. I'm going to say it's okay. Alright, so my next step is to make sure that I remove all of this. We cannot start the spindle with that attached to it for lots of reasons. And make sure that these cables are out of the way. So now basically I need to load my file, and I need to put on my dust collection. So I'm going to bring up the Z, and I want to put on my dust collector, my little boot here, which just should magnetically snap into place when I do it right. There we go. And at this point, it should be zeroed, and it's time to actually run my file. So let me get that set up, and we'll see how we do. All right, so we have our part loaded on the computer. We should be zeroed. Our work is held. I'm going to turn on the dust collection system, and I'm going to hit start, and we're going to see what happens. Alright, so I stopped it prematurely, and the reason why I was working fine in terms of the CNC router, my problem is in my work holding. I can see that that last piece is likely going to cut or hit that big bolt that I have there. So I need to get a lower profile work holding, which I will do when the time comes for you guys to do it. So let's take a look at what we got. I'm going to move the router out of the way. And then we'll pull the part off and take a look at what we got. Okay, so it's going to cut 4 when you do it. There's my first 3 of my handles. You can see my depth is a little bit off. I don't quite have the depth of my tear now, and I measured it. It's a little bit thicker than 0.5. So I can adjust my settings. This is probably, I can feel it thin enough that I can work with it and clean it up and get my handle to go.